Okay. It's worked out really well to start recording first, so that's what I did. Now I'm going to see about going live on Facebook. Should work all right. Let's see. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go live. All right. I'll go back to Zoom and we will start this introductory lesson. I once got a lesson on how to do this in a smoother way, but I do not remember everything I was told. So we're going to do it this way. Hopefully I can find out how to do it again. Then it will be smoother. All right. At least today I'm remembering to share the screen. And we'll start here. Okay. Welcome to Karen Ryce's Raising Happy Kids Zoom show, episode 83, The One Rule Solution. During this 1-hour Zoom show, I focus on sharing tips and lessons on the one rule to raising happy kids. Each episode has at least one example of the one rule in action, demonstrating how it helps you raise a happy child. Then when we have guests, we have Q&A and discussion. When I talk about raising happy kids or creating harmony with kids, I bring up the one rule. The one rule equals agreement. Agreement equals harmony. Using the one rule means you find agreement. That's the rule. You find a solution that everyone likes. You found agreement. You found harmony. Knowing and following the one rule is all you really need to create harmony between you and your kids. In any situation where there are differences that might lead to conflict between you and your kids, use the one rule. I learned this strategy from 3-year-old children. I was teaching them a complex conflict resolution strategy, actually intended for adults, and they taught me this. So don't think you're in for a rough time. It's simple, it's easy, it's powerful and effective. It works if you use it. The one rule: start strong. You have decided that you really want harmony with your child. That sounds so good, right? Everyone feeling good and getting along. You have decided that you do not want to make your child do what they do not want to do, and you do not want to do what you do not want to do, and you are going to make this work. You have decided that you want to use the one rule to make this happen. This is going to become your new habit. You remember that when you use the one rule, you are sharing the following messages with your kids. I want us all to be happy. We are each important. Together we can solve our problems. I believe in you. I love you. To create this new habit, you are going to start with yourself and what you want. You decide that you are going to let how you feel about a situation determine whether you agree with it or not. If it feels good, then you can agree with it. If not, you cannot. Think about a situation. Ask yourself, is this situation okay with me just as it is? If yes, good. If no, what would have to change, be different, so that I could feel good about it? Maybe several versions of this situation would feel fine with you. Maybe only one. This exercise, this practice, helps you make a habit of following the one rule. No matter what age your kids are, this exercise helps ensure a strong start and makes following the one rule so much easier. Here is an understanding that might make following the one rule even easier. Recently, I asked myself a question. What do I want people to feel when they are connecting with my work? I definitely want them to feel good about themselves. Then the following answer appeared, to my surprise and delight. I want people to realize that they are already using the one rule. That understanding surprised me, and as more and more of it was revealed to me, it delighted me. Of course, people are already using the one rule. I'm not teaching them anything they don't know. I'm not teaching them anything strange to them. I'm just helping them expand their use of something they use daily without thinking about it. They use it. You use it. Every time you come to a decision inside of yourself, you are using the one rule. Most likely you had to consider several options or possibilities to reach that decision, even if it just took you a few seconds for you to agree with yourself, that is what I want. You also use the one rule whenever you agree with someone else. Together, you come to a decision, an agreement. Yes, tomorrow I'll go to the auto parts store after I get my nails done. Even with your kids, you're using the one rule. You are coming to agreements. Think about it. Of course you are. You are just not thinking of it as a rule, as something required. So at times you are not coming to agreement. I am here to help you think of coming to agreement as required, as a rule, as the one rule. You just expand the situations where you come to agreement until coming to agreement is just what you do and your kids do. It is the rule you and your kids follow. When you use the one rule, you are creating harmony. Your kids are creating harmony. You're becoming used to creating harmony, familiar with how good it feels to everyone involved. One point to be clear on is that even if a situation seems complicated, and it seems that it is impossible to find a solution that everyone involved can feel good about, it is still possible. An important thing to remember is that there is a way for things to work so that everyone involved gets to feel good. Keep that in mind. This has been my experience whenever I have made this effort. A clear, helpful way to introduce using the one rule to your kids actually originates from the first time the children introduced me to what is now the one rule. You can do what I did. So they could understand what we were doing, I told the two little girls 3 things. 1, you are each important. Point to each person involved. You are important and you are important. And if it is your problem too, I am important. 2, you or we each deserve to feel good. 3, we are going to use the one rule to help this happen. Then tell them what the one rule is. When you actually start working with your kids using the one rule, helping them follow their interests is one of the easiest ways for you to start. That makes sense, right? It is also one of the most beneficial things you can do for your kids. Why is it good for your kids to do what interests them? One primary reason is that their interest is a key to helping them become the best versions of themselves that they can become. When we do what interests us, we are very engaged and focused. Think about doing something that interests you. When we are engaged and focused, what we do and produce tends to be of much better quality than if we were not interested. Interest helps result in excellence. An even more important result of being engaged and focused is that our whole being is involved in what interests us. That is why we are engaged and focused. We are experiencing harmony, inner harmony. That is a good reason to allow and encourage our kids to do what they are interested in doing. I have observed children doing what really interests them, and they become peaceful, harmonious people, even if they were not before. Now, it does not mean that everything that interests our kids is going to always interest them. They may be interested for 10 minutes or 10 days or 10 years or even for their lifetime. The point is that they are following their interests, not the specific thing or experience that interests them or the length of time it interests them. So if they ask for your help, please help your kids follow their interests. If for any reason you really do not want to do what they're asking you to do, that is a perfect time to use the one rule. Another reason for helping your kids follow their interests is one that is taking care of you too. When they are eager to do something instead of resisting doing it, you do not have to encourage them to do it or insist that they do it, let alone force them to do it. Think of how much of your time and energy could be available for you to use as you wish. Helping them follow their interests is actually the one rule in action, taking care of you and your kids. I'm glad you're here. Okay. Now I'm going to stop this share. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm going to stop the share. Okay. Now I will go to the next thing that I have set up here. And then we'll start a new screen share. Last week, I shared a lesson with you on trusting kids. And this week I'm going to share the next lesson, which was on kids trusting adults. Okay. Because of our last week's theme, trust, and ending the show with people wanting more, trust has been a theme that has floated in and out of my mind during this past week. The two primary aspects have been kids trusting the adults in their lives, and then the adults trusting themselves. Okay. First, kids trusting adults. As I think about it, it must be built into children to trust their parents, as love between parent and child seems built in for survival. Doesn't that make sense? When we are babies, we are entirely dependent on the adults in our lives to help us survive and hopefully thrive. Think of how much we can't do for ourselves. In any case, it seems that when we are babies and small children, we have no option but to trust. One awareness that has just come to me is that however much we trust our parents, trusting our parents does not take priority over trusting our developmental blueprint. What we need to do to ensure our developmental progress toward adulthood takes priority over what our parents might want us to do or not do. This is shown clearly in babies who can't yet talk or walk, but still do things that their parents do not want them to do. In fact, they might even insist on doing certain things. It seems that the most powerful trust we have as a child is in following our developmental blueprint. In terms of trusting the adults in our lives, it seems that we do trust them as long as they do not go against what we are inspired to do by our developmental blueprint. For example, As a baby, we are inspired to touch things and put them in our mouths. That is a valuable way for us to learn about things. Often our parents do not want us to put things in our mouths and try to stop us. Some even hit us, hoping that hurting us will make us stop, but it doesn't. So it seems that adults becoming trustworthy to kids becomes an issue when parents try to force kids to go against what the kids are inspired to do. Perhaps the best we can do is to help them do what they are inspired to do. Or maybe we can even encourage them and give them opportunities to go in the direction their developmental blueprint is guiding them. Maybe we are not here as their guides, just as examples and helpers, and to love them and be loved by them. In this process of trusting, it seems that the one rule takes care of the whole issue. The one rule agreement not only helps people develop trust in themselves and trust in others who practice the one rule. You can use it even if you don't already believe in yourself or your kids. Practice the one rule and get the wonderful results that come from using the one rule. Following your interests, harmony, getting what you want without having to fight for it, even trusting, believing in yourself. The other aspect of trusting that has come to me this week is adults trusting themselves, their thoughts, their decisions, and their actions. I'm calling it believing in yourself, and it seems very important. In fact, as a model of how to live, it seems critically important. Not to mention, it is essential for personal thriving. Now, a third aspect of trust has appeared, which is a primary goal of trusting. Kids growing up trusting themselves so they can thrive. The two stories I told you last week, The Roof Jumper and Poison Oak, were used as examples of an adult, me, trusting kids. But they are also examples of kids trusting themselves. In The Roof Jumper, those kids who thought they could do the jump did, and those who did not think they could didn't. Both groups were exercising belief in themselves toward a successful end. In Poison Oak, all of the kids believed in their decision to try what their friends suggested. They also had successful outcomes. The following story demonstrates that kids can be trusted with control over many aspects of life that adults often assume they cannot handle. As Bob Schwartz points out in his book, Diets Don't Work, they can even be trusted to choose the food they eat. This is his story. I once read of an experiment in which children suffering from malnutrition were put into a room filled with food. There were all kinds of delicious things to eat, including sweets and candy. And in the corner, there was a kettle of gruel. The gruel wasn't as appetizing as the rest of the food, but it was loaded with all the nutrients the children's bodies lacked. The children were told they could have anything they wanted. And almost without exception, they headed for the gruel. They couldn't get enough of it. Oh, we don't need to know about this. This is, Zoom was changing how they did things. Okay, that's it for that. Stop share. Okay. Okay, now the next thing that I have planned for today is to go back to the Power of Respect column book. And I'm going to go through some more of the columns. This was, let's see. This was a column that I had many years ago, and in a newspaper, a local newspaper. And people living in the area, and actually some not in the area that I knew and met, would ask me questions that I could answer in the newspaper about how to keep respectful. Respect was my theme in those days, the power of respect. In fact, the newspaper column was called The Power of Respect. So they would ask me these questions and I could answer them in the newspaper. And so we're going to do another screen share. I've found it's a lot easier if I pause between shares. Okay. This was a question from a woman in the community. My husband and I are fighting a lot these days. In fact, we are really in the process of splitting up. Many of these fights take place in front of our 3 children, aged 6 through 11. I'm worried about them. How are they taking all of this? And what effect will it have on them? I know many people, here's my answer of the time. And the reason I'm doing these is because I discovered that even way back after I'd just been a few years into writing my book, and obviously not the experience of all of this, but anyway, I discovered as I was reading through a few of these columns and the answers that it was completely in line with the one rule. And so I've decided to share them because these are actual questions. These are actual situations and problems that people were facing in those days. And a lot of them people still face today. And the one rule can take care of it. And as I go through it, sometimes I'll make comments on these in terms of the one rule, and other times I'll just read through them to share them with you. And you can see how long this has been practiced. And even though it has the name now, the one rule, and it has a focus that is more pinpointed and simpler, and I actually learned it from one of the girls might have been 4, but they might have both been 3, an older 3 and a younger 3. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little background on this column book that I'm sharing with you here. Okay, I know that many people advise parents not to fight in front of their children. However, the reality is that even when you decide not to fight in front of the children, sometimes the emotions are so strong and the situations are so powerful that we lose control and start shouting. We may not intend to argue, but when enough buttons get pushed, all of a sudden someone snaps. Others believe that fighting with each other is part of life and that children do not need to and should not be protected from these aspects of life. Even if you decide not to fight in front of your children and manage to pull it off, you are kidding yourself if you think they will not be aware that something is going on. Your emotions will reach them even if your shouting does not. Pretending that nothing is wrong can cause more trouble if you finally do split up than if the children are in on the process to some extent. It gives them confidence in their perceptions because they know something is wrong. This gives them time to adjust and a chance not to feel like victims as their family life changes. Tell them what is going on. Let them be part of the process. They won't feel so powerless and easily frightened. Children tend to take on the responsibility for the things going wrong in their family. Explain that what is happening between you and their father is not because of them, that you each love them very much and don't want to do anything to hurt them. Let them know that sometimes you can't help fighting in front of them, even though it is not about them. It is about the problems between you and their father. You might get their help for these times. Since you are concerned about them and the effect of fighting, in a brainstorming, negotiating session all together, you could come to some decisions. Maybe the children will decide that if you start fighting in front of them, they will leave the room. If they decide they don't even want to be in the same building when you are fighting, maybe arrangements can be made beforehand so they can go to a friend's or neighbors or other family members. Maybe you will all agree that it is important that they stay during arguments. Maybe it is decided that they ask both of you to go somewhere else if you want to fight. Maybe you decide that they will help you mediate whatever problem the two of you are having. Give them plenty of opportunities to say what they're feeling. They're bound to have strong feelings for and toward both of you and about all that is going on. It is important that they feel safe to let out any feelings or thoughts or wishes that they have. They need to know that they are important and valued and taken into consideration by you and their father. Show them the truth of this by both of you being as kind and compassionate and understanding in all your interactions with them as you possibly can. Let your concern for their well-being empower you to work cooperatively with them when you and they disagree on anything. Let them know that through brainstorming and negotiation, they can participate in whatever decisions are made about them. and that you will all do your best to come to mutually satisfying agreements. Be careful not to take your anger and frustration with each other in any situation out on them. Maybe these practices with your children will rub off on the relationship with your husband and make this whole process easier and less painful. Our family, this is the question. Our family is very close. Even though my sister and I are married and have homes of our own, our families often get together, especially at our parents' house. The only trouble is that my 4-year-old daughter and her 2-year-old daughter end up fighting every time we are together. Sometimes one ends up crying, sometimes the other. If my husband is there, he disciplines our daughter. Otherwise, we all get along great. Is there anything we can do so the girls don't end up crying and my husband doesn't end up punishing our daughter? Okay, here's the answer. Sometimes there are people who just don't get along. Sometimes this is for their whole lives. Sometimes it is just for part of their lives. In this case, it could easily be just because of the ages of the cousins. They may go through periods of this throughout their lives. However, it is possible to work with this and even overcome it or transform it. You could decide to keep them separated during these times. Maybe one or the other could have a babysitter at home or stay at a friend's house when you all get together. You could hire the babysitter to come to the place where you are all getting together and watch the girls and help them through their difficult times, so no one else would have to be involved. The family members might take turns with the girls, helping them work through problems before they develop into a fight. This means that someone is available to the girls at all times and at least stays within earshot. At first, it might be a good idea to stay right with them until they know that someone will always be there to help them if either one of them seems to need help. Explain this to them simply and clearly. For example, we want all of us to have a good time when we are together. If you want my help, just ask and I'll help you so both of you can feel good. If I think you need help, I'll ask if you do. It might take some time before they come to ask for help. So when it seems that a fight might develop, go up to them and ask, do either of you want my help? If one or the other does, they might begin talking at once, explaining their side of the story. If they do not respond, it may be because they do not understand how this is going to work yet. You can say, I heard whatever you heard, and I thought you might like my help. If they still don't respond, I just want to make sure you both have a good time. So, do either of you want some help? If they still don't respond, okay, I just thought I'd ask. If either of you want help, let me know. Then go back to where you were. Do this or something similar every time you feel, think, or see that it's needed. Only the people in the family who want to help these girls respectfully should take a turn. Or maybe there is one of you who would like to do this all the time. In any case, practicing respectful cooperation can change the pattern of interacting which these cousins have developed. When they do accept your help, then hear both sides, clearly telling them what you have understood. So you both want to use this doll right now. If you've got it wrong, they'll be quick to tell you. Then go through the process of brainstorming and negotiating to find a mutually agreeable solution. And here, I could have brought this up at the other one, the one rule. Yeah, in fact, the other one, the one rule, would help a lot if it gets used. And here too, it's brainstorming and negotiating can be a part of the process, but it's not really necessary to have that formal process here when you're using the one rule. Okay, so use the one rule to find a mutually agreeable solution. So how do you think we can solve this problem so that both of you feel good? You might have to start with the ideas, but give them a chance first. Wait patiently for them to think, even if you do have to start. This is for them to learn the process of cooperation. After they've become skilled at it, you might never or rarely have to help them again. It is a skill which will be of value for the rest of their lives. This should keep your husband from disciplining your daughter. However, if you don't like what he does, it is important to tell him. Sometime when you are both feeling good, let him know that you have a problem. It is your problem, unless he doesn't like his behavior either. And tell him that you need his help to solve it in a way that feels good to both of you. And then you could tell him about the one rule instead of all of this. And good luck. Okay, I was debating whether to read this yesterday because I looked through some of the columns that I would be addressing today. And this one has a lot of detail in terms of the meeting and the negotiating and but I think I'm going to read it because this is the foundation that was in place that the one rule comes out of. The one rule makes it all simplified. But I think I'm going to go through this. We'll see. We've read some of your columns. We've never treated our children any different than our parents treated us, but we're considering trying out some of what you've said. Our oldest daughter is 9, our son is 6, and our youngest daughter is 3. We have no idea how to get started. What do you suggest? Start with a family meeting. Be sure to find a time when it is convenient for everyone. Make sure that everyone is feeling good and unstressed. If someone is in a bad mood, it is better to deal with that problem before starting the meeting. Ask them what help they need to be in a good mood for the meeting. At the meeting, explain that you want to solve problems differently in your family than you have in the past. Say clearly how you think they've been solved in the past. Ask if this seems right to everyone else. After you have reached an understanding, tell your children what you don't want to do anymore. Explain that from now on, you would like it if everyone would do their best to solve problems in ways that feel good to everyone involved. That's doesn't have the name one rule yet, but there it is. If you and your mate could have a short example of some disagreement that you solved using the one rule, you can offer to tell them that as an example. Then ask if any of the children has a problem they would like to share so that everyone could practice with it as a starter. Reassure them that this new way of doing things means that you end up with an answer that everyone involved feels good about. Wait for one of them to come up with an idea. Then tell them that you have an idea in mind if one of them can't come up with an idea. Then wait again. It is good if one of the children can come up with a suggestion, but it is not essential. Maybe they need to see this process at work for them to trust that it will be good for them. Let's say you all decide to deal with bedtimes or meal times or chores. Be sure you have paper and pen. For this first time, it might be best for one of the adults to do the writing, because in this process, you write down ideas that isn't necessary with the one rule. That's what the children taught me. You don't want to lose the children to boredom. However, if one of the children wants to do the writing and the others don't object, let them write. It can make all of the children trust the process more. Explain that during brainstorming, the person who is writing down all of the ideas that anyone comes up with, but that the person who is writing writes down all of the ideas that anyone comes up with, but that no one should worry because only the ideas that everyone feels good about will be used. All of the ideas are written down so that none of the ideas are forgotten. Everyone feels respected for their contribution. When ideas are flowing because none of them are blocked, you are more likely just to discover those ideas which will solve your problems. However, what I've learned from the children is that very often the first idea to come up will be the one that turns out to work for everyone. And it's a good foundation in any case, even if it needs to be changed slightly or different elements added to it. So it doesn't really have to be this long, involved, and complicated. Though this is not a bad thing, just not as quick and easy as using the one rule. Okay, when no one can come up with any more ideas, then you start the process of negotiating. First, you must eliminate all of the ideas or parts of ideas that any one of you doesn't like. In the unlikely circumstance that your first brainstorming ideas are all eliminated, you can do the session again at another time, unless everyone is up for doing it then. You settle on that idea or combination of ideas that you can all agree on. You put it into practice for a limited period of time, checking back with each other to make sure it is still working. At the end of the meeting, say that you would like all the fights and problems in the family to be settled this way. Only now you could say using the one rule. Between you and your partner, between the children, or between the children and parents. Tell the children that if they want your help to solve things, just to let you know, and that if you hear them fighting, you are going to ask them if they want help to find a win-win solution to the problem. This process may seem time-consuming, but once everyone is practiced at it, you can eliminate the writing, and finding agreements becomes almost automatic. That's the one rule. Then peace in the family seems worth all the efforts at changing in the beginning. Okay, well, I'm glad I went through that, but there's the one rule right there. Finding agreements becomes almost automatic. All it takes is a mind shift from we're going to find something that works for all of us because we're each important. We're all important, not just one of us. And that mind shift, new ideas start coming to you that didn't come when you were just thinking about what you wanted and not taking anybody else involved into account, which is an unfortunate practice that has developed in adults, passed down for generations. So if you want peace and harmony and the love to flow easily in your family, use the one rule. Okay, here's another one. My 13-year-old son doesn't live with me all the time. I recently found out that he lied to me about his grades. I haven't yet confronted him about this, and I'm pretty upset. How can I possibly deal with the situation respectfully? Let your son know that you know that he lied about his grades. Be sure that you do not commit the error of making him lie again by pretending that you don't know about the lie. Tell him straight out that you know and that you want to talk with him and discover some way so that he won't feel the need to lie to you again. Choose a time and place that is agreeable to both of you to have this discussion. Decide on a neutral, comfortable place where you can have some privacy and where you won't be interrupted. Before you get to stating the problem, you will probably both have things to say to each other. It can be helpful to give each person some time to talk without interruption. You could draw straws or whatever to decide who goes first. You might need several rounds of this individual speaking before you are ready to have a discussion. than to state the problem and to brainstorm for win-win solutions. During your time to speak, be sure to tell him how you are feeling. Sharing your feelings is one way to actively respect yourself and him. However, you will find it most effective if you make what you have into I statements. This means that you speak in terms of yourself and how you feel. I hate it when people lie to me. I felt hurt and frustrated when I found out that you lied to me about your grades. I want things to be good for you, and I need them to be good for me too. There's the one rule, popping its little head up. All of these statements say something about what you're feeling and what you need, not about your son, his character, or his judgment, except for how it made you feel. Because it is fairly non-threatening, it helps him stay open to hearing what you have to say. If what you say to someone is threatening, like name-calling, or even just being critical, the other person often feels defensive and then is closed off to what you have to say. He is too busy defending himself, even just in his mind. Let the purpose of this discussion be to share and to discover some way that things can be different, so that he doesn't feel that he has to lie to you in the future. Lying comes from modeling someone else and from a sense of self-preservation. Eventually, people will lie when telling the truth causes them suffering, and if lying spares them from some pain. If they've been doing this long enough, it can become a habit. Maybe his lying comes from his other living situation. Although you may not have the power to change that, you can make agreed upon changes so that he feels safe in telling you the truth. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Maybe knowing how you feel about it will be enough for him to make the change. Sometimes people don't know how their actions are affecting someone else. Just understanding this can give them the incentive they need to behave differently and the knowledge about which of their actions they need to change. Maybe he will want you to remind him that you need to hear the truth. Maybe he will want to know that you will always tell him the truth. Maybe he needs reassurance that you will not hurt him in any way, not even his feelings, when he does tell you the truth. In this case, even if he tells you a truth that upsets you, you can say, I'm upset by what I heard. Shall we talk about this and try to work things out when I've cooled down? As always, the important thing is that you come to agreements. There's the one rule about how you will both treat each other so that you both come out of this feeling like winners. Remember to keep checking in with him to be sure that your agreements are still working for both of you. Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share because our time today is almost up. I hope you all have a wonderful week and practice using the one rule. Go sign up for it. If you haven't gotten it yet, You can get a free copy of the book and the training. They're combined in one short volume. Easy to read, fast. You can do all the lessons. And so I hope you have a great week. Oh yeah, and you go to www.happykidsco.org. Wish you all well.